Welcome to the third annual FSET Learning Innovation Showcase Awards event. I'm Steve Langford, your MC for this exciting event, this year coming to you, of course, online. In a year where we've learned so much about ourselves, our resilience and our responsiveness, where the word teams doesn't mean the same as it did 12 months ago, where COVID, social distancing, WFH and the synchronous of terms that roll off the tongue with ease, we've all adapted to a new norm. What is constant for us is our ability to celebrate our teaching achievements and reflect on our approach to student learning through this wonderful event. I believe we have around 175 people registered, so this should be a wonderful day. Let me introduce your Dean Learning Innovation and the inspiration behind this event, Professor Angela Carboni. Angela will welcome you to the event and give an overview of the day, and then she will interview our new Vice Chancellor and President, Professor Pascal Kester, who is approaching 100 days in the top job. Over to you, Ange.
Thank you, Steve. And just watching that slideshow, I can't believe how much of our work is done by our cats and our dogs and all our pets that we have. So welcome everybody, welcome to the 2020 FSET Learning Innovation Showcase. Before I start, I'd like to give an acknowledgement of country. On behalf of those present, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. I live in Carnegie, Melbourne, on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. But wherever we are, I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I also pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia and hope that the path towards reconciliation continues to be shared and embraced. This year, for the first time, we are running the showcase online and have extended our invitation to our interstate and international colleagues. So hello to our colleagues in Sarawak, the Education Centre of Australia in Sydney, FPT in Vietnam, and of course INTI in Malaysia. Welcome everybody. You will have received the showcase booklet and the program in your email. If not, please make sure you download it from the campus site and access your online copy. We devised an exciting program for you this year. This morning we have our new Vice Chancellor. She'll join me for an opening address, and that's going to be delivered through a Q&A style session. This is followed by a presentation from our PVC to present the year that's been and what's installed for us for 2021. And then we'll jump straight into our awards announcements. Now we'll take a short 15-minute morning tea break. We are hosting a virtual morning tea this year. Hopefully you've had a time to watch my home cooking. I've made some delicious smoothies and morning teas, and we're also running a Twitter photo competition. So please take a photo of your morning tea and then post it up on Twitter using the hashtag FSET Showcase 2020. And we'll be announcing the winner at the end of the day. Straight after our virtual morning tea, we'll be entertained by our first debate. And I know everyone's excited about this. Should face-to-face lectures be replaced with online alternatives? Our facilitator for that event is Brenton Hall, and he'll tell you more about the debate later on. Then we jump straight into our parallel sessions. Now these sessions are going to be delivered through Collaborate Ultra. So when you go into Canvas, you select from your home page, view the program button. So you select that button, that will take you to the program, and then you can join directly into one of the 3 parallel sessions. There's a couple of changes to the sessions. So the session that's chaired by Professor Renald Babe, she won't be here today. She was meant to be chairing the session Don't Make Me Yawn lectures, but that will be chaired by Professor Rosalie Hocking. Also, Amir Abdulhogdi is unable to present today in the Let's Do Labs virtually simulated and remotely, so there'll only be 5 presenters in that session as well. Straight after the parallel session, then we'll go into our virtual lunch. and we have half an hour for lunch. When we get back from lunch, we'll join the next MS Teams live session and we'll hear from our deans. And we have also our dean from the Faculty of Engineering, Computing and Science in Sarawak presenting. So welcome, Professor Sue Hying. Isn't it great when you're doing a live event from home? Someone rings the front doorbell. Then we jump into our second parallel session, again live in Collaborate Ultra. And just a small change to the STEM transformation session. The deans were presenting at that session. They won't be presenting now, so a slight change. We come finally to our final debate, which is invigilated exams. Are they dead or are they still alive? That's facilitated by Kazlan Chua, and he will provide us with more information about that later. I will close with a few remarks. Hong and I will both close with a few remarks. I'll also announce the winner of the Virtual Morning Tea Twitter photo competition. And like all other events that I've hosted in the past, there will be an online survey that you'll be asked to complete, and that will provide us with feedback to make future events even better. And this is the first time we're running the event online, so hopefully everything works, but I'm sure there'll be some feedback on how we can improve this for future events. So as you can see, we are set for an exciting showcase today. And to help start things off, I am joined by our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Pascal Cuesta. So thank you for joining us today, Pascal.
Thank you, Angela. And having seen the program, I'm very much sorry that I can't be there for all of it, because it should be some really interesting conversation.
Pascal, in normal times, we would have invited you to join the showcase in person, but over the past 3 years, the faculty has been showcasing and recognising its learning and teaching achievements. In fact, I have with me here the 3 booklets we had from 2018, 2019, when we focused on future technologies, and now this year focusing on teaching and learning in the year of COVID. So it's going to be hopefully an exciting program. And this year, as with so many other things, it'll be a little bit different, but thank you for joining us virtually and everyone else for being here with us online. So before we kick off the showcase, we thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about what you've observed since joining Swinburne and some of your views around where Swinburne is heading. Of course, we're particularly interested in your perspective on our faculty. And I have quite a long list of questions which we may or may not get through, but I thought let's just start with the first question and see how far we get. So the first question, Pascal, is you've completed your first 90 days already at Swinburne, and I know you've been listening to lots of staff and students and other stakeholders. What are some of the observations you've made, particularly what have you observed about the faculty, our faculty?
Well, thank you, Angela. I think I'm actually now over 100 days, which probably makes me no longer new or not quite old. I don't know what it is, but certainly I have survived the first 100 days, which was a bit of a baptism of fire, because I don't think anybody tried to kind of get one of those roles from their dining room table as I am operating today. But the connection with people and the fact that technology actually does enable and support connection between people, I think has actually been the great learning. I have been very much in listening mode, and I have been impressed by the way people have connected with their teams and have been able to support students, but also continue their research in a way that was entirely technology enabled. And I shouldn't have been surprised that Swinburne was so able and capable to pivot to that world. But I think what it has done is really affirm for all of our colleagues in engineering and science, really affirm the contribution that those disciplines make to society, which is actually the very sweet point where I think Swinburne can be positioned, where it's really technology and people working together to make a better future. And in this year of a pandemic, simply to make the world go round, which was not obvious. You know, when everything closed down in March, it was not clear what the solution would be. And I think the solution in people's mind has been technology, it has been the application of science, and people have recognized, perhaps belatedly, that all of those things that were happening in the wings actually were contributing to making society more resilient and stronger in the face of a pandemic, and probably in the face of other challenges that are coming our way.
Yeah, so we had a few challenges, and there's been lots of you know, great ideas to help us solve some of these challenges. And I know that you've instigated Swinburne Unlimited, and that's officially closed now, but it's been great, robust and energetic discussion on that forum, and there was many ideas that were shared. What does this mean, you know, having now looked at that information, what does this mean for the university and our faculty, and what are the next steps?
So for me, the gamble around Swinburne Unlimited was actually trusting that the technology would enable what was impossible with social distance and the fact that we were not welcome on campus as the result of the health restriction. To me, the challenge was to get people to talk about the future in a way that was open, in a way that was respectful of differences of opinion, in a way that really engaged the whole of the community around important questions. Now, the fact that it was a technology solution to create a conversation is actually no different to the fact that we actually had Open Day with Swintopia. And again, a technology solution was the best solution to just enable people to find a better way to engage, in the first case with students and now with staff. I have been really impressed about the convergence of ideas, but also impressed by the fact that people were really reflecting deeply about what it is that is different about Swinburne. You know, this sandwich year that actually kind of got so much interest on Swinburne Unlimited was actually both a recognition of things that were very central to Swinburne's identity, but also a reflection about how suitable this was in relation to the employability challenge, which we know the government is holding very dear. So there was this kind of lovely progression, I guess, of an idea from the past to the present to the future. And I'm very encouraged to think that really the community is behind this idea, that Swinburne could rediscover what it meant to really uphold the logic of having an applied way of acquiring knowledge and of making it work for society at large, for industry, for government. For all the stakeholders of what a good university should be partnering with. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, I think it is too. So we've got a lot of information from Swinburne Unlimited based on input from our academics, but I also know you've extended the conversation to our students, both those enrolled on campus and those who are with us through Swinburne Online. What have they been saying?
So, you know, just to correct you on the first one, professional staff were actually very involved in Swinburne Unlimited as well. It was not just the academic.
Oh, apologies. Yeah,
also professional staff. And that was actually a really nice thing too, that people did feel that they had a seat at the table and they could actually participate. And you know, this was for me a very strong affirmation of how strong the community is, that people were actually all feeling very legitimate in sharing their opinion. But you're right, we also wanted to include students. And there were a couple of things that sort of perplexed me, I guess. The question we wanted the students to help us answer was, what does it mean to have a fantastic campus experience? And what does it mean to have a fantastic online experience? Because we were mindful that we had the Hawthorne students, if you like, and the Swinburne Online students, etc. And what struck me initially, and I haven't gone through the detail of the analysis as yet, because I haven't seen all the verbatim, but what struck me was how transactional the students tended to be. So just to give you an example, when we were asking students what would make a better experience, they talked about the car park, they talked about the timetable, they talked about the quality of the slides, they talked about the technology of having multiple people into a Teams meeting, etc. And all of it was very directed to the learning and teaching service they felt they were getting or were not getting from the university. And in some ways, this was really orthogonal to the direction I wanted them to take in telling me just what would make you come to campus. What is it about the campus that is exciting? You know, how do we make the social engagement more evident? What sort of coffee do you want? Just those things that were not about learning and teaching. And I've been really interested about how much of the students' conversation was driven by the learning and teaching experience they had. And you know, in some ways, there is good and bad in that. One is how important it is that we get the learning and teaching right, and this is why a day like the one that you've organized, Angela, is absolutely the right thing for us to think about. But it also means that perhaps this is a self-selected sample. We have students who don't actually see necessarily that the campus adds much to their experience as a student, and as a result I feel perhaps they don't have the same strong sense of belonging that we really want to encourage our students to develop. Not because they have to, because there is a scheduled lecture at that time, but because the company of others, the interaction with the academics who teach them, the capacity to bump into people who are actually innovating, perhaps even sharing some space with industry partners who are doing things that are relevant to their discipline, all of that magic that can happen in an ecosystem where students are an important part, but not the only part of the population. I think that's what I would like to create at the Hawthorne campus. And likewise, in relation to our digital environment, what would it look for us to have a cloud campus that's very sticky, where people do things to relate with each other and to learn more, not necessarily in a very structured learning and teaching type mode, but simply as people growing up together, growing together, contributing to something that is a shared objective. I think that's where Swinburne could actually do something very special.
You sort of touched on the next question I'm going to ask you, Pascal, and this was raised by one of the academics actually in the faculty, and that is that we've seen many universities develop a strong staff-student partnership. Do you feel that Swinburne, from what you've seen so far, do you feel that Swinburne has a strong staff-student partnership? And does this partnership need to be reinvented or strengthened in a post-COVID world, or in a world where we're still sort of living with COVID?
Thank you. Well, I'm probably known as a little bit of a champion of co-creation, because that has always been my motto, that we do not do things to students, we do things with students and for students. Very often we find that when we actually try to find a solution for students' problem, they might actually come at it from a very different perspective. So I do think the partnership, what I call the co-creation between staff and students, is absolutely essential. We all know that no matter how much you teach, if the learner is not engaged, the learning would not occur. So we need the students, the learners, to be active participants into the education experience. And we can't get that in any better way than to actually involve them in curriculum design, involvement in delivery, involvement in the kind of team-based problem-solving challenges that we put in front of them. It's quite a different model from somebody just downloading content and then checking 12 weeks later how much of it has stuck through a very lonely exam. And I know you'll be talking about assessment later in the day, but there's nothing quite as inappropriate in terms of assessment than having a student sitting for 3 hours at a time on their own with a pencil in their hand, because for all of us who have kids at that age, we all know they can't sit still for 3 hours and they certainly cannot use a pen. So somehow we've got to flip into what the future requires, and the future requires them to be, independent thinkers, problem solvers, critical analysts, well-versed in science and data understanding, because we have seen how data can be distorted. Those are the things that we can help them develop, but they need to be part of that development, because otherwise it's not going to work.
Right. So we want to prepare our students for the future, and this sort of ties in very nicely with the next question, because we know that Swinburne has just developed their sort of new work integrated learning strategy, where it's clearly focused on preparing our students for the modern sort of workforce. But do you think this is at a cost of fostering tomorrow's thinkers and thought leaders?
I'm really relishing that question, because, in academic circles, we love to dichotomize things. We love saying it's this or that, it's research or education, it's learning by doing, or it is critical thinking. Well, if you go back to the origin of universities were places of learning that were training people who were going in professions. They were initially training priests, and then they trained lawyers. And the group of 8 universities and the world ranked universities all have medical schools, dental schools, nursing schools, and all of this is actually based on the fundamental principle that you learn by doing. Mastery comes from practice, and it doesn't preclude people from thinking. In fact, very often you learn and you think more when you're trying something and it's not working. So there is a much more continuous transition between the vocational, the skill-based acquisition of habits of behavior, if you like, and the higher education, which are actually about habits of learning, habits of the mind. But there's never been a dichotomy in the university world where teaching a profession was seen as being no less worthy than teaching to think, because actually one always thinks as one does something, and it is actually a connection between behavior and thought processes that is actually an indication of good learning. So I have to say, I think that learning by doing is something that is very strong at Swinburne. We are actually blessed by the fact that we have a dual sector identity. That means that we can tread on that continuum. We can actually scaffold learning around the learner, and I'm really a strong believer in that kind of learner-centric education journey. And there will be some people who will remain more comfortably at this end of the continuum, and others who will quite comfortably go into the much more abstracted and much more theoretical world. But it's not a dichotomy, and we shouldn't choose one over the other or think that choosing one is going to be at the detriment of the other.
Oh, that's very nicely answered, Pascal. That sort of brings me to the next question around, recognising the learning. We know that universities have, for a long history, have been offering, bachelor degrees, 3 or 4 year degrees, and master's degrees, which take years and years. But now we're moving into the world of micro units and micro qualifications, and I wanted to get a sense of what your thoughts are on micro units and micro qualifications being offered to professions for individual upskilling.
Thank you. Well, I do think that the pandemic has not created the need for professional development, but it has just accelerated the need for some professional development in, for instance, the area of digital competency, digital literacy. It's not a matter of opinion, actually, whether or not we think this is a good idea. I think this is the way the world is going. I think expecting people to commit to a full-length degree is something that is entirely appropriate for the school leaver market. In fact, there is in what it is that they expect not only a full degree, but also a kind of full immersive experience of a university degree, which is going to be, for many of them, very defining of their own sense of self, and it's going to be, a very big part of their lived experience. But increasingly, the task of universities is actually going to be able to provide education almost as just-in-time education, because people will be changing jobs or going from one sector to another, or they will be challenged with a particular thing happening in their current careers. And what they will want is not to sign up for 2 or 3 years of continuous education. They will want the building block of what it is that they need in order to succeed into whatever career move they are actually envisaging. And good universities should feel comfortable about this for 2 reasons. One is that if we are able to develop a series of digital assets and then able to multiply the number of channels by which those assets are made available to learners, then we can actually invest more in those assets, create a better quality of digital assets. And that will be beneficial to the on-campus students as much as to the off-campus online students, professional learners, and all the rest of it. So there's an element, if you like, of economies of scale, because people often think that online is cheaper. But when it's done well at the very high level of production quality, it is actually going to be quite an investment. So why should we not take advantage of the fact that those digital assets can then be distributed through a multitude of channels? But it's also the fact that people are learning these days. So, we have to recognize that the sort of investment in time that a full degree represents is not something that is necessarily going to be part of what people are ready to sign up for. Now, interestingly, the micro-credential might actually enable us to gain people to the full degree simply by virtue of allowing them to accumulate the credentials that they need for a full degree over time, almost without realizing it. And if we are clever and if we're strategic in the way that we credentialize the units of learning that people undertake, if we're able to be agnostic in the sort of units that we can recognize in a degree, we probably will find that actually some people will get a degree after maybe 5 years of doing quite a number of things for different reasons, but actually being able to bring it into a coherent set of learnings that can actually be deemed to be equivalent to a degree. So, you know, the future is going to be full of that kind of challenge. How do we marry up flexibility with quality, with coherence and integrity of the programs we deliver?
Yeah, that's going to be a really exciting chapter for us, because we're only just starting to touch that space. I know in our faculty we've only got some micro-credentials in some of the space technology units, but we haven't really explored it in the depth that's required. But you make some really good points there, Pascal. Look, I wanted to bring your attention to our faculty in particular, and that is, I wanted to get a sense from you if you feel there's areas that we should be growing, that you would like to see us grow, or any new discipline areas that you think we should be focused on that we're currently not doing at the moment.
Oh, that's a very a good question, and you know, I haven't got. I tend to be very much evidence-based and data-driven, so we do need to actually collect data, because one of the wonderful things about universities is how passionate academics are in relation to their discipline. And so, you know, typically when you just rely on faculties or schools to generate new programs, there will always be a plethora of ideas that will be generated, because everybody believes their discipline is the most important thing in the world, and they all want other people to be able to kind of get the benefit of their expertise in that field. I have to say, from the point of view of the sustainability of our programs, it's very difficult for us to just have programs that are based on the passion of a few academics. As precious as this is, we actually cannot survive long term, if we, particularly because it's so difficult to actually delete programs if they have not found their mark, if you will. Increasingly, I think that the sort of degrees that will be in demand will be the ones that are actually demonstrating some degree of multidisciplinarity, and that goes a little bit against, of course, what academics, and I'm one, so you know, I'm talking in a very inclusive manner here. Obviously, an academic would prefer a bachelor to be very highly specialized, so that you can get after 3 years of students to the point where they can do an honors, which is kind of just demonstrating that they understand what the research endeavor is all about, and bang, we can get a PhD students. Now, this is the ideal kind of cloning process that academics really want to be able to apply. But of course, one student in 10 or so will actually want to do a PhD. Now, at Swinburne, we're going to try and change that, because we want people to do a PhD, not necessarily because they want to become an academic, but because this is going to be very valued by industry. And that in itself is a challenge. But we also have to think about the other 9 students who actually want to have a career and are interested in this or that discipline, but find it very hard to choose one and abandon the others. So, you know, it's difficult in Australia, for instance, to contemplate doing double degrees, because it kind of lengthened the period of your degree, or to work with people who come from different disciplines in team projects that would actually put, you know, somebody from the business school, somebody from engineering, somebody from the social science, looking at, I don't know, maybe a humanitarian challenge somewhere in a developing country. Those kind of things, those kind of experiences are really affirming for students, not just in terms of demonstrating that they have an expertise to contribute to this kind of team effort, but also because they get exposed to a very different perspective, which is kind of something that will happen to them in the world of work. So understanding that not everybody is an engineer, not everybody is a scientist. I'm going to have to work with those people and not kind of make the case for my discipline being better, but make the case for just how useful my understanding of my discipline is in the context of bringing all of those things together to find real solutions that will really make people's lives better. So it's both a dose of humility, but also a kind of greater understanding of the respective contribution that many disciplines can make to tackling particular problems. And I think we should try to develop that as I know it's already happening in some of our areas, but we still tend to have very siloed program where basically we want to create little sort of deep experts in areas instead of transversal contributors, which is something that I think the world out there requires us to do.
Yeah, we've been trying to look at how we can transform STEM to make it more interdisciplinary. And it's not an easy task because people, from tradition have taught their unit and it feeds into this degree and it's got a path that you follow. So sort of break that mentality and to bring in that interdisciplinarity is a little bit tricky. It hasn't been as easy or as smooth as what I would have expected it to be.
And it's kind of normal behavior. So, I'm not, criticizing anybody for thinking in that way. I think it's very natural that as educators in particular, we tend to replicate and teach by reminiscence. And I think the logic, from the psychology point of view, is, well, it worked for me. I became quite good at what I'm doing, and this is the way that I learn it. But the underlying assumption there is that today's learner is the same as what you were 40, 50 years ago when you were the learner. And clearly, patently, the answer is that's not quite true. The learners today are a very different set of qualities and attributes. The fundamental human quality remain, of course, but they've been exposed to a lot more information. They've been much more alerted to world issues. They've been a lot more exposed to the digital environment. And as a result of that, they are different from what we were 40 years ago. And there's no reason really to assume that the kind of pedagogy that worked so well for us 40 years ago is the one that we are entitled to inflict on those learners who are fundamentally different subjects from what we were. So it's about trying to kind of step away from teaching by reminiscence to really having an informed, considered approach to our pedagogy. And that approach needs to be, in my mind, very much learner-centric. It starts with the learner. If the learner is a professional, what do they need? How do we talk to them? How do we assess them? If the learner is a Year 12 student, what baggage do they come up with? Because very often the discovery is that actually through the schools, they've done a number of things. And when they come to university, we somehow ask them to go back in time by 25 or 30 years, when in fact they would be ready to just kind of continue on a seamless journey. So it is all about being learner-centric, and it's all about being really considered in curating experiences that are going to allow the learner to grow. It's not about us bestowing the benefit of knowledge to passive recipients. It's us being coaches of learning. It's us thinking deeply about the kind of experiences from which the learner will get enough cues and understanding that they can then operate independently. That's the ultimate, I think, of the success of education for a university.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting journey to try and get, really sort of down that path in a meaningful way, because you are asking, almost a culture change to the way universities have been operating in the past. But Chip, you can't eat an elephant in a day. My husband keeps telling me, one bite at a time. Pascal, I wanted to bring your attention to your voice survey, which closed on the 9th of November.
Yep.
I'm wondering, I think you've already had a chance to review some of the feedback at a very high level, and I thought perhaps you could share some of your insights and if any priorities have been identified for improving our work environment for the future.
Look, I think, first of all, the fact that people have engaged with the voice survey, I think is tremendous, because this has been such a challenging years and people have, really had to sort of cope with such a lot of demands and almost an invasion. The world of work has invaded their homes. We saw this in the lovely video that you started with. To then come spend the time to provide an answer to the voice survey, I think was a very generous thing that staff did, and quite a number of them did. And I thank everybody from your faculty who did participate. And look, there are some results that are positive, and I've looked at them. In some ways, I'm a bit ambivalent because I arrived in August, so I own these results without owning them, if you will. But there clearly is a sense that people have felt that change is imposed on them or that it comes from above. And one of the things that I have tried to do, and I'm hoping that people understand this is my perspective, is I've been very transparent and very evidence-based. So the first town hall on the 17th of September, I showed the data as it was. When we did Swinburne Unlimited, I wanted all of it to be visible to people, because I think this is the way that a mature, responsible adult, informed population should actually relate to each other. And I will continue to do this. Now, clearly, the voice survey will take some time to shift, but I hope that in due course, we will start seeing people recognizing that this is not actually a top-down thing. This is actually about a university that kind of decides that its future depends on being differentiated, on being really high performing in some areas and perhaps not in every area, and just making choices that are choices that people understand and sometimes disagree with, but will accept is the result of informed, evidence-based analysis and response to a rather challenging environment. So obviously lessons to be learned from the voice survey. People want to be more involved, they want to be more included in decision making. They do feel that there is a kind of a somewhat controlled and command logic into the place, and if there is, I've got to be agnostic, I do not know. If there is, we'll fix it. If there isn't, the perception is real. The perception is absolutely, we cannot deny it, and therefore we have to actually shift the perception. So this is work that will take multiple years. It's not going to be a dial we can shift that instantly. But do I think that a university can evolve and grow without having the whole of the community willing to follow? Absolutely not. Universities are quite special in that way. They're not a corporate environment. You don't get to tell people what to do. You get to demonstrate the merit of your argument. You get to demonstrate with data why it is that change is necessary. And, on the basis of that, most mature, responsible, intelligent people will actually see that the greatest risk we face is in not changing. Now, very often people are almost blind to that risk. They see a lot of risk in change, a lot of risk in everything that could go wrong. But I just would call everybody to be really mindful that the biggest risk of all is not to change when the environment is really very fluid and fast changing.
Yeah. Pascal, I'm looking at the time. We've got 4 minutes left. I'm going to try and squeeze in 2 more questions, right? So one of the questions which was raised by one of our academics, talking about a changing world, and we can see, in the American political system with, Joe Biden taking over the presidency there, and he's going to have a strong focus on climate change. And so this is why I guess one of these questions has come up. So the question is around, is there an ambition to make Swinburne a leader in sustainability in Australia? And how can this be achieved through technology innovation and with students' involvement?
Absolutely. And, I do think that there is a couple of really good opportunities for universities, and I would say selfishly for Swinburne, more so than the other universities, to earn back that social license. I think the current political climate demonstrates we're sort of lost, really. For us to be always castigated for doing the wrong thing, and for us not to be assisted in the way that other sectors were assisted as a result of the pandemic. Clearly, we have not been able to communicate well enough or convincingly enough why it is that universities are fundamentally a good thing for a society to have and for an economy to have. And there are 2 ways in which we can, I think, earn again that social license. One is for the fabulous work that has occurred in relation to health. And I'm not just talking about the fact that the University of Queensland was working on a vaccine. I'm talking about the work that Sunil has been doing in terms of telehealth and assisting people in aged care, how to get mental health benefits without the capacity to interact face-to-face with health carers. So, there is that kind of social license we get from having been part of the solution at the time of the pandemic, and that's great. But I think another part, and a very important part, certainly for school leavers and for young people, they are angry, they are motivated to find a solution, and they are sick and tired of hearing that it can't be done for this or that economic reason. If anything, they saw what happened during the pandemic. Everybody switched their car off, Everybody did something really good for the planet. Why? Because they were told. Well, guess what? They were never told that actually some of the things that they were doing were really problematic in terms of the environment. So Swinburne, and I'm pretty confident that we are going to be the first university that gets to zero carbon by 2025. In fact, I'm tempted to actually challenge students out there and say, you know, if you want to go to a university that would be carbon neutral by the time you graduate, come to Swinburne, because quite frankly, there's no other university that can make that. Now, obviously, this is not about a marketing claim. It's about the actual shared purpose that I can hear from talking to academics from around the university, that they are really exercised by that big world challenge. So there's work happening in the hydrogen field. There's work happening in terms of the business areas. There are lots of people currently thinking about in what way can we make sure that we provide solutions, not just the dreadful statistics about, you know, what happens if the climate goes up by 1.5 degree. We all know how catastrophic that will be, but actually a optimistic, hopeful and science-driven way of tackling what is clearly a big challenge, and a challenge that is, you know, possibly described in emotional term as the greatest moral dilemma of our time, but could actually be presented as the biggest scientific challenge of our time. And why not apply a kind of evidence-based, scientific, ruthless rigor to this particular challenge, and get our whole community to think about ways that we can do it. Now, you will be interested, Angela, that people are always sometimes a bit ambivalent. So at the same time as we do this, when we ask the staff the question about how, you know, to return to work, well, people want to keep their car park, right? They want to keep an office, and you know, some say, I want an office and I want to be able to close the door. And that means, okay, so people may not be back 5 days a week, but they still want an office. How does that work in terms of our electricity bill? How does it work in terms of cars being on the road for 1 hour every morning and every night? You know, it actually starts with us, and it starts with us really being motivated and not depressed, not defeatist, not gloomy, but really seeing this as an opportunity to demonstrate that technology and science will be the answer. It is the answer. We just have to mobilize our people, and we just have to really present in an articulate, sophisticated manner to government the way that things should actually evolve to get us out of that pickle.
Pascal, look, I won't, thank you for that. That was lovely. I won't ask you the last question because we're 2 minutes over time now. But, you know, I had a good list and I wasn't sure we'd get through them, and we didn't, but it's such a pleasure to hear you talk. You're such an inspirational leader, and, you know, your responses were very, very thoughtful and very considered. And so I really thank you for giving up, you know, half an hour of your time to talking to our faculty and being part of the session. Now, that was meant to come in after I ask everyone to thank me in joining Pascal. Pascal, that was a big cheer that we tried to make work. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Ange. Thanks, Ange. And thanks, Pascal, for your insight and education, the idea of your vision, and of course, your candidness. We look forward as a faculty to working with you on Swinburne's journey. Our next speaker requires little introduction. Hung, a member of the Order of Australia, joined FSET as our Pro-Vice Chancellor in February 2018. He has strong research interests in neuroscience, artificial intelligence and biomedical engineering, with innovation and transdisciplinary approaches at the heart of his thinking. This morning, Hung will discuss the changes that occurred through 2020, the challenges we have faced, and, moving forward in the COVID normal world, how we might embrace a digital-first approach, how we can embed technology and industry connection into our pedagogy. Over to you, Hung.
Thank you very much, Steve. And it's very important for us. To Professor Angela Carboni, to the Innovation Showcase team, Kay Ritchie, Kate Abbott, Carol Hart, Danielle Bellinger, and to everyone who is with us today. Is my face is in the middle or off somewhere?
We can see you live, Hum.
Okay, thank you. All right. If we look at 2020, it didn't really quite go to plan first. In the first quarter, we went on holidays. We returned to commence semester 1, but straight away we had to transition to online teaching, and it was quite challenging. You actually can see that we staff and also students actually took up the challenge, and we actually were very busy looking at the way how to transition to online learning and teaching in a big way. In the second quarter, we look into Student Emergency Fund and its launch, contribution leave announced, government support package for international students, and also the first transition to campus plans. In the third quarter, the stage 4 restrictions implemented, and it was incredible the way it's the first time for everyone, and it's very difficult, but again, we rose to the challenge. Temperature checking implemented for any on-campus activity. Most staff worked from home, and we learned that, you know, for the remainder of the year. The fourth quarter, sorry. Well, we start to open up a little bit. We're allowed to have haircuts. Final year students, you know, back to campus, you know, allow them to finish, and all is looking hopefully well for the upcoming holidays. FSET really rose to the challenge, and we placed all learning content online, and it is not simple, but you know, I could say so many stuff, and you know, actually back to campus very, you know, it's difficult to actually work out some sort of time to go in there, to film labs and tutorials, to create workspaces at home. They juggle family and work commitments, and it's a huge commitment. We learn to tackle new technologies. We supported students through ambiguity. We welcome one another from our homes. And essentially, its incredible way is that we remain diligent in providing a positive student experience. Pardon me. Some of the evidence you actually can have there, I may written only a few. AVA 2003 is very interactive and feels more like what I would expect from the workforce in real life. It feels like a much better way to prepare for this industry than bland theory, research and exams. Simulation of running an airline was very interesting, insightful and challenging. Continue to do this is very worthwhile for students. Another one is AST 10001. I really enjoy everything about this unit, really. The lectures are really interesting. The small demonstrations that are done during the lectures are awesome and helpful to assist understanding of topics. The tutorials and the labs I have also found to be informative and very engaging. And another one, MTH 10013. I adore the way this unit been run. The short video and the question at the end are incredibly helpful. I also love the fact that our lecturer has an afternoon where she sets aside a few hours for us to ask questions about the week's content. And you actually can see that's some of the evidence. But I have another evidence that I would like to acknowledge someone, Wayne Rowlands. And on the 3rd of November, Wayne had a serious bike accident on Tuesday, 3rd November, breaking several ribs and his hip. And he returned from the hospital on the Thursday of the 5th of November. And on Friday, guess what? He was taking on an online revision class for his second-year students to help prepare them for their final assessment. And this is absolutely the resilience and the incredible dedication from our staff. Thank you, Wayne Rowlands. If you look at the what we achieved for undergrad, on 2020, and during the pandemic time, we still the undergrad is still we were affected, and we achieved 3,510 EPSO against the target of 3,780. And you can see that our target achieved is 92.9%. Essentially, the rent total is maybe under minus 10% from 2019. And so it is affected, but it's not strong. The undergrad course portfolio updates, we have space technological measure, new from semester 1, 2021. Construction engineering measure phased out from semester 2021. Drone training units in Bachelor of Aviation proposed semester 2021. The one we are affected is in postgrad. You find that the target is we achieved around 1,121 against the target of 1,367. We achieved around 82%. Overall, around 16% reduction. And you actually can see because of a number of different things. We actually have the close of border and the number of international students coming back. It's not coming back in the second half, and that's why you actually can see we face very strong problems there. So we are also looking at the postgrad review. Some of the postgrad courses, we actually have 99.5% international students, and we have to look at the way how to look at things. But we review the postgrad very carefully, and the course portfolio updates. We go into Master of Engineering Practice. We're looking into Industry 4.0 specialization, Master of Engineering Practice, Master of Engineering Construction, Industry Project Unit in Software and Electrical Engineering. We also have discontinuations in Graduate Certificate in Risk Management, or specialization for Master of Science, Network System, reduced specialization in Master of IT and Master of IT Professional to 4 from 8, and unit reductions and optimization across all schools. However, regardless of the very difficult year in terms of research, we still achieve quite a lot. But I would only like to focus on something recently here. With the high side, we have high side researchers from FSET, and it is a big drawcard for the university. Professor Jin Long Hang and Associate Professor Xiang Ming Zhang, they are dual high side researchers in both computer science and in engineering. Apart from that, we have Professor Vaughan in mathematics, Professor Chris Blake in space science, Dr. Daryl Ding in crossfield, Dr. Xiao Huoge in computer science, Associate Professor Eva Labbe in space science, Associate Tianyi Ma in crossfield, Professor Sad Mekilef engineering, Associate Professor Tonghua mathematics. And this one here is very important in a number of different ways, because they really indicate the area we actually outstanding, well above world class. In our faculty, we have 90% of our disciplines is above world class, and 100% at world class and above. And this one here, we look into our future technologies, and this high side research underpin everything from artificial intelligence to space science to energy to mathematics, and it's actually will contribute to our future technologies, where we will focus on space science, advanced manufacturing technology, biomedical technology, and we will look into the intersection of research and teaching for the future. I would like to take this opportunity to farewell the learning and teaching farewell for the voluntary redundancy staff, and they are Aaron Bidlau, Alan Coleman, Tony Crescenti, Stephen Fanghauser, Jos Morsi, Sebastian Peter O'Donoghue, Igor Sparsky, and Andrei Sidorov. They contribute tremendously in teaching and learning. Among them, there's so many hundreds of years of service, and both in teaching and research. So I would like to wish them all the very best for their future endeavor. So 2021, we look into a new normal. Challenges still lie ahead. We will integrate our research excellence into teaching in a big way. We will distribute reliance on student demographics, enhance blended and digital learning, and again, we're focusing on work integrated learning in spine, remain cost conscious, and we will welcome change in the way we work, and we'll integrate a reflection system for continuous improvement. That's about for me. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Angela, and best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
Over to Steve.
Okay, thanks, Hung, for your insights and leadership in 2020. Look, it's been a crazy year, and we've had to pivot frequently, but your calm demeanour has been very much welcome. We'll keep moving given the time that we've got, but don't go away, Hung, because you've got another gig. Our final session before our virtual morning tea involves the FSET award presentation. This really is a highlight of the showcase for us, and this gives us a chance to highlight some of the achievements of our FSET staff, both TNR and Sessionals throughout the year. There are 5 award categories. I'll now hand back over to Hung to announce the first award, the 2020 FSET Teaching Excellence Awards.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Each year, the faculty recognizes quality teaching practice and outstanding contributions to student learning by individuals and teams. These awards are based on the criteria outlined by the Australian Awards for University Teaching, and applicants enter in one of 4 categories. This year, the faculty has recognized 3 award recipients, and the winners are. All right, I'll start with the first one. For the category approaches to teaching and the support of learning that influence, motivate, and inspire students to learn, please join me in congratulating Dr. Nico Ronald. For excellence in introducing formal, self-directed, community-focused learning to motivate students in a mobile software development unit. Thank you. And Monzour Imtiaz and Iqbal Hossein for incorporating industry and real-world related teaching contents, tools, and case studies that attracted many students and significantly improved students' satisfaction. So we have there, and last but not least, and for the category innovation, leadership, or scholarship that has influenced or enhanced learning and teaching and or the student experience, please join me in congratulating Dr. Smith Jose for developing engaging videos that increase student engagement and conceptual understanding of first-year introductory physics students. Each of our award recipients are presenting in today's FSET award and grand winners breakout session 2, starting at 2 p.m. in Collaborate Ultra. So again, congratulations to the recipients for their outstanding efforts and their impact on student learning. I will now hand over to Angela, who will announce the Best Canvas Units Award.
Thank you, Hung. Thanks, Hung. So I will be announcing 2 categories of awards, the Best Canvas Units and the Most Improved AQUEP Units. So in order to assess the Canvas units, we had LTU evaluate a set of units against a set of criteria. And the criteria were around unit information and content, assessment of student learning, and accessibility. Within each criteria, numerous elements were reviewed and assessed by 2 evaluators from LTU. Each recipient of this award will receive a certificate acknowledging their contribution. So the winners are School of Science. We have Chris Fluke for NPS 10001, Introduction to Science. We have Dr. Emily Cook for MTH 10013, Linear Algebra and Applications. In the School of Engineering, we have Aaron Bickblau, who is just retired and is unfortunately not here today, for Engineering 10002, Engineering Materials. We have Professor Dong Tracy Rang and her team, Shang Qing Zhu and Wei Bei Li, for Structural Mechanics. And in the School of Software and Electrical Engineering, we have Michelle Dunn and Scott Wade for Advanced Medical Imaging, and Jiong Jing and Michelle Dunn for Robotic System Design. Please join me in thanking the winners for the Best Canvas Units. And now we'll move on to the Most Improved AQUEP Units. So this award is based on improvements, significant improvements that are made by academics to their units that were identified as part of the academic enhancement process, which is what we call the AQUEP process. So improvements are based on student feedback and measured through changes that we see through the overall unit satisfaction. And this year we reviewed changes in unit satisfaction from 2 teaching periods. Semester 2, 2019 as 1 teaching period, so the previous offering of that, and semester 1, 2020, we're looking at units that had improved from its previous offering as well. And the award recipients are, so please join me in acknowledging the following academics. So we have, for improvements in 2019, they're in a little bit different order to my notes. So we have 2019, Stephen Frankhauser, Mark Krieger, lecturer, and Graham Robinson, and Kevin Tong for Aviation 20007, that's the current and future airlines technology operational concept. Stephen Frankhauser has also retired as well, who's not here today. We also have Peter Bruce, Greg Boland, and Bruce Rogers for ABA 20008 aircraft maintenance. And we have Ruzu and Mehdi Nazeparis for COS 8007 advanced Java. We also have winners for improvements in the period semester 1 2020, and that's Mazul Imtiz as the convener and Mohammed Khan as the lecturer, and the tutor Riwana Esha and Mensei Gamaredan for CVE 3001 urban water resources. And finally, we have another winner with Monzoor Imtiz as the convener, Iqbal Hussain as the lecturer, and Misam Gamindari-1 as the tutor for CVE 80010 Principles of Sustainability. So please put your hands together to thank those recipients. As I said, they'll be receiving a certificate, in electronic certificate, of course, in the next day or two. I will now hand over to Kay, who announced the Best Sessional Educators Award and the Professional Placements Academic Supervisor Award. Over to you, Kay.
Thanks, Angela. And I am very proud to announce the Best Sessional Educator Awards. So to determine the award recipients, we look at the sessional teaching scores in the 2 semesters over the 12-month period since the last showcase event. This time we could only assess semester 2 29 teaching scores due to an unprecedented event. There were none in semester 1 2020. So the criteria used to determine the winners is the following. It's any sessional staff member who receives a teaching score of 9 or over and who has more than 20 student responses. So it's a very high threshold. This year I'm pleased to announce that we had 10 sessionals deserving of the award for Best Sessional Educator. And the winners are Ali El-Jajali for Project Costing, Alareza Zabihi for Mechanics of Structures, David Newman for Human Performance and Limitations in Aviation, Mark Krieger for Current and Future Airline Technological Operational Concept, which is quite a mouthful, Gregory Boland for Aircraft Maintenance, Ian Somerville for Electric Actuators and Sensors, Kenneth Igbo for Applied Research Methods. Now, Mehdi Nazeparis, you've done really well. You've done 2 units that got the award. So the first was Object-Oriented Programming and your second unit was Advanced Java. Rory Coulter for IT Security, and last but not least, Veronica Cashin for Introduction to Chemistry. So a big virtual clap for all of our Best Sessional Educator Award winners. So our last award for today is the Professional Placement Academic Supervisor Awards. So the academic supervisors are assessed on their scores in students' evaluation, as well as with the feedback of our faculty will coordinators. So they also manage and work closely with the academic supervisors. Information from due date audit data is also considered to support the selection for the awards. So I'd like to thank the WIL team of Yvonne, Peter, Chris and Amir for coordinating the award process. And the winners are Hui Lu from the School of Software and Electrical Engineering. Andrew Clayton from the School of Science. And finally, Mohammed Fadipur from the School of Engineering. Once again, a big virtual clap to our Academic Supervisor Award winners. So it's congratulations to all of our award winners in each of the 5 categories. We'll be sending you award certificates electronically within the next week or so. Now it's back to you, Steve, to close the session.
Steve.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the video to come up. So thanks, Ange. I'm onto it. Thanks very much, Kate. Look, what an interesting morning session we've had. It was fascinating to hear the insights from Pascal, a summary of the year from Hung, and inspiring to see the themes and distribution of our award winners. As is normally the case, we had some echoing, we had slide presentation issues and some doorbells. Well, that's just a really good summary of the challenges we've faced this year. Now it's virtual morning tea time, and I've got my cookies just here. So please visit the Canvas site to view the morning tea videos and post to the Twitter hashtag FSET Showcase 2020. There'll be a prize for the best photo. We'll see you at 11:15 a.m. For the exciting Great Debate 1. Should face-to-face lectures be replaced with online alternatives? In order to get to this, you'll need to click into the session link in the Canvas site and view the program and joint session button. Enjoy your morning tea and look forward to seeing you after the break. Cheers.